മഹാപ്രളയത്തെ നേരിടാൻ കേരളത്തിനാവില്ലെന്ന് മാധവ് ഗാഡ്ഗിൽ ആദ്യം വിളിച്ചു പറഞ്ഞപ്പോൾ നമ്മളത് ഗൗനിച്ചില്ല. ഇന്നവയെല്ലാം യാഥാർത്ഥ്യമായിരിക്കുന്നു. ഇനി എന്ത്? മാധവ് ഗാഡ്ഗിൽ തന്നെ പറയട്ടെ. നമസ്കാരം സർ.
നമസ്കാരം.
Sir, you have stated in your report that more sensitive areas in the Western Ghats you have marked in as Zone 1.
Yes.
And primarily the first landslide reported in the recent heavy rain was in the particular zone where is included this Mundakai included.
Right.
So, why the reason of these sensitive zones causes this much disaster?
See, the sensitive zones are characterized by high elevation and on these western slopes of Western Ghats everywhere, and of course Kerala, basically the Western Ghats are all west facing. So on these slopes rainfall steeply increases with elevation. So although very often there is no rain gauges there, very clearly the highest rainfall is at high elevations, and on steep slopes, given high rainfall, there is possibility of landslides. So the highly sensitive zones are those prone to high possibility of landslides. Now secondly, we have ranked as highly sensitive those zones which are natural vegetation cover, which of course the roots and the overall they hold the soil and reduce the possibility of landslides. If natural vegetation cover has been disturbed, then the possibility of landslides increases. Now it is very likely that in these areas over these years, because there has been lot of unsystematic, uncalled for interventions going on all over, and where these landslides have occurred, say this year in your Wayanad, Malappuram districts, very likely there was also some disturbance to the natural vegetation in areas already highly susceptible to landslides, and it is therefore quite expected that there could be landslides in such areas.
Do you think that vast plantations are happening, and recent reports are coming that rubber plantations in the particular area of Western Ghats are being converted to quarry lands and quarrying places for the granite, and also all those such kind of quarrying is happening, and especially such kind of plantation has been converted into quarry. How much intensively it contribute to the such disasters?
I mean, all the scientific evidence shows that areas where there are quarries and the way the quarries are conducted in Kerala. So one particular one, Chembanmudi in Patnamthitta district, the local people were very strongly protesting, and I think some geological survey or some such team had looked at it, and they had also reported that the quarrying activity was definitely leading to landslips. Now landslide is a sort of more larger scale landslips. So quarries certainly are responsible for landslips. Also construction of roads very often carelessly on such slopes in these areas would lead to landslips. Now the quarries require continuous traffic of the metal is being carried down, and therefore they would always have more extensive road network and so on compared to plantations. So there would be these roads, there would be heavy truck traffic on the roads, which would also render that area, because of the vibrations and all, more sensitive to landslides. And then in the actual quarrying activity and the blasting and so on, that also increases. So if there are quarries, all scientific evidence says that there is likelihood of landslides is substantially increased. Otherwise also, if natural vegetation is being replaced by plantations, and very often these days the JCB machines are used to extensively level land and so on, and those also render the soils loose and more prone to landslides. So in the highly sensitive areas which are high elevation with high rainfall and steep slope areas, if you have these disturbances, then there is no doubt that the possibility of landslides would go up.
And the recent complaint that from the expert committee which allows the quarries and everything, the expert advisory committee, I had contacted some scientists in the expert advisory committee. They had stated there should be 200 meter away from the human habitation every quarry should be, and recently that has been reduced by the statute itself, it is 50 meters. So that is a condition in Kerala which is prevailing.
This is unfortunately all over the country actually, to be frank. The real estate lobby and those who can do activities which quickly can make money without much investment and much effort, they have a complete grip over all the governments. In Maharashtra also it is the same case. Here also rock quarries, stone quarries, lot of people are complaining, but the authorities are actually going out of their way to promote quarrying. So this is really only very clearly a display of vested interest taking over governance of the country, and of course they want to make quick money, and destroying nature is no problem for them because they are safe somewhere else, and these problems are increasing. Unfortunately, since the report was submitted in 2011, actually this tendency has gone up, and your reducing from 200 to 50 meters is one manifestation of this hold of vested interests on the governments.
And definitely your commission, the committee constituted under the chairmanship of yourself itself is in intention with the specialized zone marking and legislation for protection of Western Ghats. In 1986 legislation of environmental protection also says that a specialized zones should be there to protect. And we have the Coastal Management Authority, Coastal Zone Management Authority, and in particularly in Kerala we have paddy land conservation, all such laws are there. But when it comes to the Western Ghats issue, it is not being realized. What is the constraint primarily you have witnessed?
No, I think there are two aspects. Certainly a proper authority coordinating activities is called for, but authority imposing its own bureaucratic regulation is not conducive to either environmental protection or people's welfare. In other areas of Western Ghats, not in Kerala, but these ecologically sensitive areas have been constituted, and the experience is unfortunately negative, because there also the authorities are imposing very selectively what is to be imposed depending on who is the party concerned. The richer the parties, scot free they go. In Mahabaleshwar, which has had this now for almost 20 years experience of an authority protecting in Maharashtra this ecologically sensitive area zone, the local people uniformly say that on their farms trees cannot be cut. They said, all right, we accept. I have personally gone in the field and seen, but where there are larger landowners who are now wanting to convert it to lodges and tourism resorts, there without any difficulty they are cutting down trees. So I do not believe in authorities which are bureaucratic authorities not accountable to public or people. So our report again and again says that these measures should be implemented only after actual democratic process of getting feedback from the people, how they should be implemented. There should be monitoring by the local governments, local communities of the implementation, and these should not be draconian. Now you had this Kerala some forest EFL, I think it was called, and EFL was a bureaucratic management of protection, and the experience has been quite negative, and that is why lot of people are against any such regulation, because they think it is like EFL, which is by bureaucratic fiat, and regretfully the bureaucracy uses all its powers only to harass people and extort bribes and to get other kickbacks from the rich who are making a lot of money. So our report again and again says that conservation imposed from above or development imposed from above is not what we want, and we are a democracy which has agreed to democratic devolution. we have 73rd, 74th amendments empowering panchayats. In the case of Plachibada in Kerala, there is also this High Court judgment where when Coca-Cola factory imposed damage on Plachibada worth, I think, expert committee estimated 260 crores. The panchayat asked the Coca-Cola company to stop operations. Coca-Cola company went to High Court and High Court has clearly said that panchayat has the authority to stop activities which are inimical to its people. State government cannot overrule. But state governments are riding roughshods. I don't think anywhere are panchayats going to agree to reducing, let's say, the area distance from the quarries from 200 meters to 50 meters. But this is being imposed. So development is being imposed, and as with your EFL, whatever that Forest Act earlier, conservation is imposed. This is completely wrong. Kerala has amongst the leading state in the country in terms of democratic devolution, although it has not gone far enough. Actually, I think maybe he is currently also Finance Minister, Thomas Isaac. He was leading in the 1995 to 97, 98 a campaign, so-called People's Planning Campaign, which said that it is people right down to panchayats who should plan what they want. Now, when he is currently the finance minister, isn't it? Yes. So, I think he should think of recall his ideology of 20 years ago and actually again insist that yes, as our report says, it is the local governments. We have said that all our recommendations should be examined right down from the Gram Sabha, Ward Sabha level, and then through a process of democratic feedback, a whole set of suggestions should emerge and decisions should be made. But none of this is being done. It is bureaucratic fiat which is prevailing, and as you see, imposing worse and worse thing on people. Lot of coastal fishing communities, for example, are complaining. There is some IOC project, Indian Oil Corporation. Yeah, I had gone there last year, and their land, which is traditionally their fishing, both habitation and from where they could fish, they are just taken over, and in complete violation of coastal regulatory zone restrictions, and government is tolerating it. I think maybe it is a central government agency. So this kind of thing, if it goes on, unfortunately, India will have the kind of problems like Kerala is having, on an increasing scale, where small number of people make money by liquidating natural capital, by overusing natural resources and overriding people's wishes. So the way ahead should be, as our report emphasizes, that it is the local communities which have a clear stake in protection of the environment, and in democracy it is imperative that they should be given due role in all decision making. That role should come to them, and then we should progress.
In a holistic way, we have to approach all these things.
Yes, of course.
Definitely our buildings, palatial buildings are very common in Kerala. High, maybe peak buildings are there, and skyscrapers are there in the Western Ghats itself. Itself in Wayanad, very sensitive places are there. So such kind of construction should be reduced. That can be only the means to reduce the quarrying. That is the present situation is prevailing. Do you think such kind of holistic approach? What kind of holistic approach as a environmentalist you have to explain?
Because sectoral approaches, environment is one area where sectoral approaches do not work, and we know all along. For example, sectoral approach says that you should encourage chemical industry, but the kind of pollution problems it causes, it is sort of brushed aside. But the concrete example which Western Ghat Ecology Expert Panel actually detailed documented was that the promotion of chemical industry on one river Vashishti in Maharashtra led to maybe creation of 11,000 jobs in the industry, but decidedly by destroying the fisheries in the Vashishti river, it has rendered 20,000 people jobless. So, you cannot only be thinking of promoting chemical industry as a sector and not think of other things. Secondly, also while planning, it should not be project by project, because Goa is a very good example. Project by project, it says one more small mine, it will require only 5 trucks to transport the ore, a small number. But there are 70 mines operating and 350 trucks on the roads are completely destroying Goa's transport system and choking the whole traffic. You cannot say 5 is okay and give permission, another 5 is okay, give permission. You must have an overall approach, as you are saying, a holistic approach. All sectors, all considerations, including impacts reaching outside of the particular location, like the mines everywhere, because of the necessity to transport the ore, are not only affecting where the mine is or the quarries are, but all along where the stone metal or the mining ore is being transported. So, all these widespread impacts must also be taken into account while making proper planning, and that is why you need I had some farmer who is a very progressive farmer, a good friend of mine. They put him on the Agricultural University's Board of Regents in Karnataka. He said he was aghast. Each agricultural scientist, he only thinks of one little thing. He thinks of insect control, the other fellow is thinking of fertilizer, the other fellow is thinking of some water conservation. But farmers need to take an integrated view, and none of the scientists have any integrated view, and you cannot talk to them. They only know and think and try to push for their own sector. So, this on the ground must translate into, if it is to translate into a holistic approach, then those who live on the ground, they have to live in a situation where everything that is happening has to count, and that is why this expert driven also sectoral planning is very dangerous. We need, as you are saying, very holistic approach.
And when we are coming to the case of Wayanad, Wayanad has been reported as a carbon neutral panchayat is there. Meenangadi panchayat has been found as carbon neutral panchayat, and that such initiatives have happened. And especially such initiative has been done to protect the coffee conservation and campaign the coffee as carbon neutral coffee and so and so. Such kind of plantation, such kind of agricultural promotion, will it would be helpful for the environmental protection?
These details I am not familiar with, but certainly monoculture, extensive plantations, if they are accompanied by unnecessary disturbance of the soils and so on, would not be environment friendly. But I cannot comment on this specific example because I really do not understand exactly what is happening there.
Again, you have reported in your report itself, you have stated dams are affecting adversely for the environmental conservation. What kind of issues that the dam creates?
So, there are a number of issues. Last year, for example, or this year in the dam floods in Maharashtra and Karnataka, they are due to simply poor management of storing of water year round, every year, till the dams are full and then starting release. This is not proper. Firstly, it is required that there should be regular environmental flows in the river downstream of dams to allow the fish and other aquatic creatures to survive, to have continual recharge of groundwater in the surrounding areas along the river bed, and for many reasons. But the practice has been, last year it was brought out very well by this River Research Center in case of Chalkudi river, which made voluntarily regular observations, that a number of dams upstream had stored water till the last moment. Actually, the River Research Center people and I think there were many panchayat people from downstream had written to authorities in July last year itself, July end, that the dams are full, getting full, and you should keep some space for further inflow into the dams, because in August there is likely to be rain. You must start releasing water. People were worried that unless they started releasing water towards the end of July, they will have problems. The dam authorities paid no attention to these requests. These are all unwritten documents. This is very clear evidence I have seen in terms of this Chalkudi. So they completely ignored. Then the August, middle of August, somewhere around 10th or so, whatever, there was these heavy rains, the dams got full. Actually, then they started thinking of releasing, and there were problems. I think some trees got stuck in the dam gates, in any case. And suddenly there was this huge flow which led to all the damage. The estimates are clear that if the water had been released properly in a regulated fashion, the damage last year would have been reduced, because the flood levels in Chalkudi may have been less by about 2 meters. So which would have covered a very extensive area of damage would have been avoided. So this is one thing. Then there are many other issues involved with the dams in terms of environmental problems, including, regretfully, everywhere dams are constructed. Since so many good roads get constructed in earlier inaccessible areas, then advantage is taken of them to deforest catchments of dams. I have myself done extensive studies and shown how every time a dam was constructed in Maharashtra Western Ghats, earlier thick forest was wiped out. This should never have been happened. The catchment should have been preserved. So, and then of course the dams get silted up. All data again shows that the rate of siltation in all the dams is much higher than what they are projected. So the dam life is reduced, and then you have this dead storage. So without serving much purpose. There is a whole range of issues, but currently in Maharashtra all the floods are certainly due to, again, Almaty Dam in Karnataka. The engineers or who are authorities who might have ordered them, anyway, Almaty Dam, till the last moment it was filled up. When there were finally heavy rains recently, then finally they started releasing a little bit. It was too late. Huge backflow occurred in the upstream of the dams in the Krishna basin, and Kolhapur, Sangli, Satara district suffered serious damage.